Good morning, Mr. Chair.
For the record.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Tony Resio with law offices at 2525 Ponce de Leon Boulevard. To boil this down, this was a neighbor-driven effort, an effort we believe inspired out of fear of redevelopment. This fear is misplaced because there are already protections in place in the code, and I will explain those in a moment. And beyond that, this effort is unfairly singling out this property as opposed to the entire neighborhood. That road that you see in yellow is the access road. That's the ring road. It is entirely private. It is accessed by a gate with an electronic gate. You have to be buzzed in to be allowed in. The subdivision as a whole is actually pretty interesting. It's got a long and vibrant history. What did happen in this home? Well, it was the home built by William V. Little, who was director of the Bank of Coconut Grove, and according to the staff report, he served as mayor of the town of Coconut Grove for 1 year back in 1920. We're perfectly willing to go along with the tide with everybody else. We just want to be treated the same way.
You think that's important to the people of Coconut Grove, that a man lived in that house that was the mayor of Coconut Grove?
I believe it is important. I don't believe it's any more important than any of the other happenings that occurred.
The answer is yes.
In the subdivision.
You brought it up, so I would imagine you found it to be yes. Do you also find it that the property embodies those distinguishing characteristics of an architectural style or period or method of construction found in that area?
The staff report says that the architecture is...
You concede those 2 points?
Yes.
Okay.
Kathleen Kaufman, Preservation Officer for the City of Miami. The little house in New Littlewood was built in 1902, and it was the home of William V. Little. William V. Little was actually the gentleman who created that whole subdivision of New Littlewood, and he did the original plat, and he built that house, and very civically active and an early pioneer of the Coconut Grove. During the course of the public hearing, at the Preservation Board hearing, both items of concern were addressed. There was a question as to why now? Why were the neighbors just starting this now? They have had a McMansion built in there, a really, really large one. And they have had some other developments go in there, and they have had demolitions just within the last year of historic homes.
For 2 minutes, thank you.
Final statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Final statements. As to some of the misconceptions, of the houses that were demolished, none of these were by Mr. Goldberg. I don't know how those 2 parcels were demolished. The code is clear. There's a Class 1 is required under NCD 3, and under the current HEP Board resolution saying that the entire neighborhood is to be reviewed, that's supposed to preserve the status quo so that no one can do that.
I'd like to make, for purposes of the discussion, a motion to deny the appeal and affirm the ruling of the HEP Board. It's truly, first off, with regard to the NCD, in our office we have learned that the city does not know how to properly administer the Grove NCD 3, so I don't find very much of protection with regard to the NCD. I think we'll get better at it. I hope we get better at it. I know we have a new manager that's committed to it. It's my understanding, Madam City Attorney who's sitting there, that the 2 criteria we have to decide is the property associated in a significant way with the life of a person important in the past? I believe counsel for the appellant actually said it was. The second question, if we choose to answer, because we only have to answer one, is the property embodies those distinguishing characteristics of an architectural style or period or method of construction. And equally, once again, counsel answered that question in the affirmative, so I don't even have to listen to what the neighbors had to say. 2 of you expressed your opinions about constitutional rights of not being forced to have this declared a historic designation, and 14 of you came here in favor of what the ordinance says. It is not a voluntary ordinance. I think it's a relatively easy decision. I think you've heard pretty clearly that this is accessible. I think you heard the only reason that there's a fence up is because the owner put the fence up, which made it an inaccessible and probably partially blocked the view of others to see. I think it's important that we get back to the basics in Miami, and I think one of the things that the citizens have an expectation of us, and that is to protect the neighborhoods. This is a mechanism and a means of protecting a neighborhood and an historic house. This particular building is, by anyone's estimation, a historic building of consequence to Coconut Grove. And if it's of consequence to Coconut Grove, it had better be of consequence to the city of Miami.
Commissioner Regalado, you recognize for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's a pretty easy decision to make. I was listening to all the debate, and I was thinking, well, with this frenzy in Miami-Dade County and Miami to build museums and keep things that are historic, why are we debating here for such a long time if we should let a historic place go away? It doesn't make sense.
History has to be tangible. And when I say that, it is great to look at books and see history in pages and in films, but we have to be able to feel, touch, and walk through halls of great establishments that have made our city history. I also have to take into consideration the recommendations of the Historic and Environmental Preservation Board, which approved this. And based on the arguments that have been heard here today, I do believe that it does meet the criteria for designation. And therefore, I also support the vote to deny. All right. There's a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, roll call.
This roll call is on your resolution. Commissioner Regalado.
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spence-Jones. Commissioner Sarnoff.
Yes.
Chairman Sanchez.
Yes.
The resolution has been adopted, denying the appeal and affirming the HEP Board.